Okay, welcome to another Happy History Tours with Michael. And today we're at the Imperial War Museum. And it's an oxymoron taking you to a war museum and to talk about something happy. But if you hang on till the end, all will become clear. This fine edifice was in fact a mental hospital until it was taken over by the Imperial War Museum to house their artifacts. And in fact, not on this site, but it's the oldest mental institution in the whole world. It was in London, it was in Moorfields, and then it came here. And it was called St. Mary's Bethlehem Hospital. And it was a notorious place. And in fact, in order to raise funds, the poor inmates were very seriously ill. And many of them were in chains. And one of the ways that they would raise money is by inviting people in to gawp at the inmates, and they would rattle their chains to agitate them and put on a better show. But thankfully, those days are gone. When it was actually a mental hospital, it had great big wings to either side. And one of the most famous people to be treated here was Augustus Pugin, who was, of course, he worked on the Houses of Parliament. All of that ornate Gothic work is down to him. And strangely enough, if you just pan around, there is a church over there. You can just see it there, past this building. And that was the largest Catholic church in London in its day, and he was married there. So anyway, I've kind of digressed a little bit. In 1917, the government decided to make a war museum. It was just towards the end of the war, the First World War, the war to end all wars, and they wanted to house artifacts. And actually, if you go in, the first thing that you'll meet with is a field gun, which saw action in that war. And on the second floor, it's more to do with the Second World War. And further on, you will see artifacts from Northern Ireland, the Gulf War, etc. Actually, I just went in and I saw a vehicle that I used to drive when I was a soldier in my youth. But there we have it. Now, actually, the museum was actually at two other locations. It was at Kensington, and it was also at Crystal Palace. But in the 1930s, the mental hospital moved to Surrey, and they set themselves up here. Actually, and then shortly afterwards, of course, the Second World War came about. The First World War wasn't the war to end all wars. It was, in fact, the peace to end all peace, as one famous writer said. But when the Second World War took place, now you would not have seen those guns from dreadnought warships. There was actually a barrage balloon here because of the Blitz, the feared Blitz that was coming. And the soldiers who were manning this equipment, they didn't have too much equipment. A lot of our stuff had been lost in Dunkirk. So they actually went inside and they picked up German helmets and they wore those until they were given their correct kit. So there we have the building there. But what I'm going to do now is take you on to the Tibetan Peace Garden, which is also on the grounds of the Imperial War Museum. So if you follow me. Oh, by the way, actually you see over there, there's a piece of concrete with some graffiti on it. This is actually a part of the Berlin Wall, just for your information. Okay, now after visiting the Imperial War Museum, it's I think it should be obligatory that people come over here, because this is the Tibetan Peace Garden, and this was opened in 1999 by none other than the Dalai Lama. And as we've come through, we have a pillar which talks about the need for peace in the troubled times that we are living in at the moment. And if we come in here and contemplate about all of the people who lost their lives in these kind of futile wars in a way. Another thing which I neglected to say is that actually in the museum there's a whole section to deal with the Holocaust and, you know, that terrible, terrible loss of life that took place in those concentration camps. And what I always think about is actually, if we just turn around and we see those guns there. Now those guns were, those huge guns, they were on dreadnought battleships. And before the start of the First World War, England ruled the waves, and we built these dreadnought battleships. They were virtually impregnable, and we ruled the waves with these vessels. But the Germans, of course, we were in an arms race with the Germans, and the British Navy, they really wanted to trounce the Germans so that they could be supreme again. And of course we had the terrible Battle of Jutland, and we found that these vessels were nothing but trouble, really. But at the moment, in the museum, we have a V2 rocket, Vengeance machines. And in fact, one of them landed on Kennington Road, which is just over the other side, and destroyed a whole row of houses. Now these things, they left Holland and they virtually left the atmosphere and came down, and they caused, you know, immense damage. And Hitler thought that these were going to save the war for him. But these were the precursors to the intercontinental ballistic missiles. That's a hard one to get out. And in fact, German scientists were taken to America, and these were instrumental in the development of their nuclear arms battery. Just recently, well, a long time ago, I read a book by Neville Shutes called On the Beach, and there were 2 films made of it. This is like a post nuclear warfare scenario where everybody in the world dies. And there's been a book that's been released recently called Nuclear War, a Scenario. And it really doesn't bear thinking about. As it says on the obelisk as we come in here, as the Dalai Lama said, you know, we've got to find a way to resolve our differences non-violently and peacefully. Sigmund Freud famously said, if we don't take care of the demons inside, we'll externalize them, and, you know, we'll end up having wars and so on. So the museum is well worth a visit, a very, very sobering place. And this garden here is a very peaceful place. All of the plants here, they come from the Himalayas, and it's a wonderful place to kind of meditate on what you've just seen in the museum. Okay, thank you for watching. Take care now.